On with Dane Brugler now, who puts out the Beast, which is the most comprehensive draft guide I think that I've ever seen. Hey, I have a question for you, Dane, since it seems like things very much are done moving as far as everybody's at the pro days. We have the combine. They're now having to come up with stories like, does he tap the ball too much? Like, it's that time of the draft now where we need new blood because we don't know where everybody's going, but we kind of know how good everybody is. So with that being said, I was looking at some odds this morning, and they had they had Hunter at number 2 overall. Where is he with you? Because I'm assuming Cam Ward's number 1 on your list.
Yeah, if we're just projecting how the draft's going to play out, Cam Ward, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. And I think that was pretty clear at the combine. It was more of a question, will the Titans stick and pick, or will we see a team like the Giants or another team try to make a play for that number 1 pick to get Cam Ward? But it sure seems like the Titans feel good about taking the quarterback at 1, and perfectly understandable. And then at 2, I think when you look at the Browns, they're in a position to take the best non-quarterback in this draft. And in my opinion, that's Travis Hunter. As unique a player as we've seen, but he's more than just the, it's more than the unique factor with Travis Hunter, because he is a dynamic athlete. The ball instincts are tremendous. It's more of a question, okay, how are you going to maximize his talent? Is he going to be a full-time corner and you're going to mix in some plays on offense? I think if the Browns take him at number 2, they want to help their offense. This was an offense that ranked 32nd in the league last year in offensive scoring, 32nd in the league in third down conversions. They need a spark. And if they're not going to draft a quarterback at 2, you want a guy like Travis Hunter, who is so dynamic, he can get open, he can create after the catch. And so maybe not the same body type as ideally you want, being 6 foot, 185 pounds, but he plays so much bigger than he looks, and good luck trying to cover him. It's more of a question, okay, well, how are we going to use him on defense as well? And so when you draft a player like this, you have to have a plan in place.
Let's talk about Travis Hunter then for a second, a little more in depth. I watched a lot of his pro day. I watched a lot of his games too, but he was running a lot of routes I'd never seen before as actual routes. Like, it looked like the purpose of that was to just show how quick he is. Like, well, you saw it too. What do you think's happening there?
Yeah, we call those TikTok routes, where it's just kind of, you're going out there moving around. It wasn't full speed. It wasn't necessarily the full route tree. It was more just, hey, I'm moving around, showing you that I'm healthy. Because he didn't do anything at the combine. We don't have a 40-yard dash from Travis Hunter, and I understand why. I mean, he's, like I said, he's the best player in the draft. We don't need to see him go out there and do a vertical and a 3-cone and all of this. It's just good to see him go out there and move around a little bit. Everything that you love about Travis Hunter, he put on the film. And so this isn't the same thing as like a second-round receiver where maybe you have a question about the speed, or maybe you have a question about how he moves and you want to see it in person. There's no wondering with Travis Hunter. He is, in my opinion, the best player in the draft. And even though the pro day was a little bit JV, it didn't really, it's not going to sway you one way or the other. It's because he's already kind of locked into being a top 3 pick.
When you mentioned the Browns and they're going to go non-quarterback, I mean, they have Kenny Pickett. I mean, is that maybe they do a Cousins situation, but then that's just projecting if it's Cousins or whomever. Like, what do you feel the reason is that they're going full non-quarterback?
I think you have to take the players that are there. And this isn't like last year where we had 3 quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, and all 3 were deserving. If Drake May were in this draft class, he goes number 1 overall, and the Browns would take Cam Ward at number 2. But you have to, it's just how things play out. And the Browns have the number 2 pick in this draft, and they're just, in my opinion, there's one quarterback at the top, and then there's a gap. And I think that's how most teams see this. And so it's a question of, are we reaching on a quarterback, but that also means we're passing on a guy that could be a cornerstone for our roster, whether that's Abdul Carter from Penn State or Hunter, like we talked about. So, I think the Browns, they're sitting at 33. They're the first pick in the second round. They've done a lot of work on Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Tyler Shuck from Louisville, Milroe from Alabama. So this is a quarterback class that I would argue Shedeur Sanders is closer to that group than he is to Cam Ward. And so that's why you take the better player at number 2 overall. And then at number 33, you could maybe move up. You could trade up to 25. You could stick at 33, take a quarterback there. Or, I mean, who knows? The Browns need a lot of help. I think that they understand the hole that they're in from the Deshaun Watson trade. And so they're not going to force the quarterback pick if it's not there. They could go with Travis Hunter at 2, you get a left tackle at 33, you add another receiver, another tight end, another running back, and then maybe they do go the Kirk Cousins route and you go into next season with Kenny Pickett, Kirk Cousins as your starters, and you look at quarterback in next year's draft. So the Browns, how they manage this quarterback situation will be really interesting.
Jalen Milroe, you bring him up. He's now going to attend the draft, which to me felt weird because I really hadn't heard that he was projected in the first round. You'd hear some whispers, but then, Dart obviously ahead of Milroe, at least according to the experts, and including you being one of the experts. But you don't really go to that unless you're projected to be a first-round pick. What has changed?
Honestly, I don't think anything's really changed. I think Jalen Milroe and his representation knows there's a decent chance he's not drafted in the first round. But I think that it's when you manage expectations, it's a little bit different. With everyone remembers Aaron Rodgers and Brady Quinn, and the cameras were on them nonstop the first 25 picks in the draft. But that's because a lot of people expected them to go in the top 3. And so it was like they're falling. I think with Milroe, the expectation is, maybe there's a chance he could go into the first, but more likely he's going to go on day 2. And if you're the NFL, hey, that's great. We have somebody that's going to go across the stage on day 2, play to the crowd. It's good TV. So I think the NFL is fine with it as long as the cameras aren't on Jalen Milroe nonstop starting, with the 8th overall pick. So managing the expectations are a big part of that. And for Milroe, you have to think about it, for his family to walk the red carpet and to be part of that, to be in Green Bay, which has so much history, and to say you were at that draft. It's a pretty cool experience. So you could understand maybe why he would want to be there.
We'll talk about Will Campbell for a second. I measured all my arm. I measured we did the whole thing, and I got the same size arms as Will Campbell, and I'm 6'1", 175. I thought that I would have shorter arms than Will Campbell, but how much does that actually matter? Because I see when you list him, you have him listed as a tackle/guard, and is that because of the arm issue?
Well, I think he is a tackle first and foremost. That's where he should start. But I think you feel good about, okay, if it doesn't work out, we could move him to guard. Or if the team that drafts him already has their tackles in place, think about the Bears. If Will Campbell were still available at 10, you play him at guard as a rookie, and then eventually he takes over as your tackle. So, ideally, do you want 34-inch arms, 35-inch arms for your tackles? Absolutely. But I think it's more of it's something that helps you, but more importantly, it's about your feet. It's more important about your body control and your timing and your ability at the point of attack to overpower the guy in front of you. And that's what Will Campbell does at a high level. You think about it, the last 3 years, because he showed up at Baton Rouge, 18 years old, won the starting left tackle job, and he has been terrific the last 3 years in a really good conference. The last 30 games that he played, he gave up 2 sacks. So I think teams are ready to trust the tape with a guy like this, who said the tape says he can play tackle. And there's some questions about the combine testing and the way they measured, because at the pro day he was at 33 inches with the arms, and scouts are doing those measurements as well. And he wasn't the only one. There were a lot of players who measured shorter at the combine. So I think that teams feel good about Will Campbell as being a tackle.
I'm gonna do a lot of very personal, selfish questions now regarding either this show or where we live. And I'm going to start with the Titans. And initially, yourself included, weeks ago, you had thought possibly they would trade that pick. But now after the pro day, I think everybody then felt, because they canceled the other workouts, they are seemingly in love with Cam Ward. Do we feel like the Titans are a definite Cam Ward number 1, like as close as you could possibly be, or still maybe they trade it?
You never say never, but especially because we're dealing with a first-year general manager, Mike Borgonzi, second-year head coach. We don't have a track record really of these guys and what they like to do in the draft. But all signs are pointing to Cam Ward. And, the Titans are not going to tell us what they're going to do, but I can talk to every other team and they'll tell me what they think the Titans are going to do. And everybody in the NFL thinks Cam Ward is going one to the Titans. And you can understand why. If you think that Cam Ward has a chance to develop into a top 12 to 14 quarterback in the NFL, you shouldn't pass. I mean, the Titans, what if they don't take Cam Ward? What is their avenue to a quarterback? It gets a little bit murky. Who knows? Next year they might have the 8th overall pick, and you're on the outside looking in at one of these quarterbacks. Will Levis. This is not the same general manager that drafted Will Levis, so all signs are pointing to Cam Ward, and I think it makes a lot of sense for them.
One of the guys on the show is a massive Patriots fan. They're in the top 5. I think they're at 4. What do you see them doing?
I want to see them draft Will Campbell. I do. I want to see them get the left tackle. You think about how good Drake May was last year as a rookie with a bad offensive line with very little help around him. Okay, so you add Stephon Diggs, you get better on offense there. Let's help get him more help on the offensive line. And we talk a lot about the hit rate on second round quarterbacks. The only thing worse is the hit rate on second round offensive tackles. It is hard to find offensive tackles in the second round because if you're good enough, you're going to go in the first because there's 32 teams that are looking for offensive tackle depth. And so, maybe ideally if you're the Patriots, you trade back to 7, 8 and take him there. But there's a good chance you're not going to have those offers. And so you stick, you pick, you take the left tackle. Absolute worst case scenario, he struggles at left tackle. You move him inside to guard, and you figure out your tackle situation elsewhere. But you're going to get a starting caliber offensive lineman who has Pro Bowl potential for the long term, and someone that's going to help your quarterback.
We have a psychotic Cowboys fan on the show, and they're at 12. What do you see them doing?
Yeah, and I think the Cowboys, they target more players than positions when it comes to these top picks. And so I think you look at one of the top receivers this year, they need help on the defensive line. So, which pass rushers are there, interior or on the edge? They could also use another corner. So how much do they like Will Johnson from Michigan? I keep coming back to receiver and how much that can help open up the offense. Ted McMillan from Arizona, who is not a burner necessarily with the speed, but he's a ball winner. I mean, his catch radius, his ability to go up and make plays, very similar to like a T. Higgins, except McMillan's even a little more limber and loose. So needs to get better as a route runner, but I think you add a talent like that, and that's just going to help CeeDee Lamb. It's going to help Dak Prescott. And then in the second round, you come back and you get that running back, whether that's Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson. And all of a sudden, that Cowboys offense is getting a complete makeover within the first 2 rounds of the draft, and you're feeling a lot better about where that offense is headed.
What about Shedeur? He's been all over the map. Where do you have him now?
Right now, with where we are, I would guess 9 to the Saints. I don't think he's going to the Browns, and 3 with the Giants are truly a wild card because we know they're desperate for a quarterback. But are they going to force the pick? I lean towards no. And so then it becomes, all right, where does Shedeur go? 9 in the Saints are a possibility. Could he fall all the way to the 20s? And we talk about the Steelers, or maybe we talk about the Browns or the Giants in the early second round, trading into that late first to get a Shedeur or maybe even a Jackson Dart. So right now, the over-under on quarterbacks in the first round is 2.5. And even though this draft is more similar to that Kenny Pickett year where we had 1 quarterback in the first 73 picks, as opposed to last year where we had 6 in the first 12, I still think we're going to see these quarterbacks go. So if the over-under is 2.5, I'm going to take the over.
I'm interested about the Giants because, again, they signed Russ and they have Jameis. Is that a Band-Aid for 1, maybe 2 years? And do you really feel like they could possibly be in the quarterback market at least round 2, 3?
No doubt. I think signing those 2 guys is quarterback insurance. It's a way to make sure you don't have to force the quarterback, but if the right quarterback's there, then you take him. So they're a candidate, possibly trade up in the late first to get one of those guys. If they stay with their pick in the early second round and the right quarterback is there, Jackson Dart, they've done work on Jalen Milroe. Milroe is really the wild card, like we've talked about. I don't think he goes first round, but could very easily go early second. Teams are really intrigued by him, even though they know it's going to take time. So what they did in free agency with Jameis and Russell Wilson, more of quarterback insurance, making sure they don't have to force the pick this year.
So the Beast, you've been doing it for a while. We've had you on before talking about it. I mean, it is so thorough, and theathletic.com, you can see the mock, the articles, everything that you do. But when do you start on this? And I'm imagining that it's always a rough draft until you actually publish it.
It's a living document. It really is. And it's a year-round project. I mean, right now I've already started working on 2026, just and not really on purpose. It's just inevitably you're talking to a scout, you're talking to a player, and they bring up a player for next year. Or you're watching tape and you're watching a certain pass rusher, but a tackle starts flashing and you look him up and say, oh, I need to watch him for next year. So it's a year-round process. The summer is really when I get a lot of the legwork done. That's where you create the base. So there's expectations going into the season. Then during the season, that's when you really focus on the tape, see who's getting better, who's emerging. And so a lot of the work's done by January 1st, but that's when we get into all-star games and the combine and the workouts. And I really start to everything, crystallize the reports and the opinions and all of that. But the testing information, that's a huge part of it. Having the verified testing information for over 2,500 players, it takes a lot of work to track it all down, get it, because I'm not going based off of what I see on Twitter. Every single number in the draft guide is directly from a scout. And so people know they're getting NFL verified numbers. And I think that's a huge part of this, just to put maybe into context what type of athletes these guys are. And maybe, when our team drafts a guy or if they sign him as a free agent, you just have a better idea of what type of athlete that player is.
Which I go only by what's on Twitter. See, that's why we're different. That's why we get experts on, because I'm only going by Twitter. There were two tight ends I wanted to mention because I have like two questions left. And Tyler Warren, we watched him because Penn State was amazing. He was amazing this year. Like the guy would create space. But Loveland's also freaking a stud at Michigan. And there's been a bit of debate on which one's better. In your mind, who goes first? And what's the difference in their skill sets?
Yeah, and I really don't think it's a debate because it just depends on what type of tight end you want. If you want the guy that's ready-made out of the box and has a higher floor, then Tyler Warren's for you. What he did last year, like you said, he had 104 catches for Penn State, and he impacted the game in so many different ways. He had 4 rushing touchdowns. He had a passing touchdown. He is a well-built athlete. He looks the part. He can help you out as a blocker. Where with Colston Loveland, he's more of the move tight end, where big, fast, has better upside, but also a little bit more of some question marks there. He was banged up a lot this year, doesn't really have the frame that you want. So I think if you want to bet on the upside and the athlete, totally understand. Colston Loveland is that dude. His ability at the catch point, him and Tyler Warren, both these guys are so reliable, so consistent. And I think even though Tyler Warren is a good athlete, Colston Loveland is just on a different level. So if you want to chase that upside, totally get it. Loveland makes sense. If you want to go with maybe the better football player right now, this second, I think Tyler Warren it makes a lot of sense as well. So it just really depends on which direction you want to go. But I think both are off the board, probably in the top 15 picks. Tyler Warren, I'd love to see him in Chicago at 10. I think that is an underrated fit. And then with Loveland, I love him, mocking him to the Colts. I think you want to add an explosive playmaker. You're trying to figure out who your quarterback is in Indianapolis. Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? Give them another target who's going to help open things up.
So one more question for Dane, but by the way, Dane's NFL Draft 2025, The Beast. It came out a couple of days ago. Go to The Athletic. I'm a subscriber, so I've already been deep into it. But theathletic.com, it is the most comprehensive draft guide of the season. And so my final question will be running backs, because there's like 30 running backs that are good. It's a deep running back class. But how many in the first round? 2, 3?
Probably 2. And I think, the biggest reason not to draft a running back in the first round this year is exactly what you said. There's 30 good ones. I put draftable grades on 30 running backs this year. So, I think you feel good. Okay, let's get our tackle in the first. Let's get our corner in the first. And then, because we feel good about rounds 2 and rounds 3, getting those guys. Now, Ashton Genty, he's too good. He's going to go in the top 10, one of the best players in this draft. And then I think Omarion Hampton from North Carolina also goes in that first round. I keep, looking at that fit in Denver and what he would bring to a Sean Payton offense with, the promise Bo Nix showed last year, a team that made the playoffs. But then you look at the second round and okay, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson and Caleb Johnson. And we could go on and on talking about these running backs. So teams feel really good about waiting till day 2, even into round 4 and 5, and still feeling like they're getting a really good running back. So we're going to see a lot of running backs come off the board. I think we'll see at least 2 though in the first round.
Okay, my final question. Where do you see Scatterbo going? Like around what number pick?
I would say somewhere between 85 and 115, that late third, early fourth. He's not going to be for everybody, but you could see where a lot of teams are going to look at what he does in the passing game, see how physical he is, and say, yeah, okay, we could add that to our offense and we can make that work.
You follow him, DP Brugler, and we'll put all the notes in our podcast so everybody can see where to actually go. But the Beast, dude, it's excellent. Congratulations on finishing it and putting it out. I know how much work it's got to be. So we love it, and we appreciate your time.
No, anytime. I thank you.
All right, there he is, Dane Brugler, everybody.